everyone. I'm Julie Balderrama, and I'm coming to you today inside the Conscious Leadership Facebook group. And we're going to be talking about the holidays. And during the holidays, we have a tendency to, everything's just sort of heightened during the holidays, isn't it? So the triggers that might be coming up for you, or the emotions that might be coming up for you, the memories, the feelings, and all of those things that we sort of, maybe throughout the year have a pretty good handle on, they can kind of get a little activated this time of year. So that's one of the things that is the subject that we're going to be talking about from now until the end of the year. We're really going to be exploring how to be in these holidays in a way where we show up the way that we want to show up. So I'm going to give it a little bit more time for people to hop on live. I see that someone is watching, but I can't see who it is. So if you're on live, I'd love it if you said hi or gave me some hearts so I can see who it is. That would be fantastic. Thank you. And if you're watching the replay later, let me know that you're watching the replay so that I know what resonated with you. I know that you were in on the conversation, and I can kind of check in with you and see how it landed for you. It is freezing here in Texas. I don't know if it's actually freezing or if it just feels that way. Ashley, it's you. I'm so happy. I'm guessing that you can hear me. I didn't do a mic check, but I'm assuming that everything's working okay. And I know that you can hear me because you said hi. I'm so happy you're here. So it got really, really cold here in Central Texas, which it doesn't do very often. And when it does, I love that sort of like coziness, because I don't have to get out in it if I don't want to get out in it. So that helps. But that I was actually reading an article today about how people in weather that is like the Norwegians, how they deal with cold weather. And it was kind of comparing how some cultures that might, sort of like bond over complaining about the weather, how they had a different experience, which is kind of, not what we think about over there, because it's so cold and the darkness is sort of continual. We have this idea that it's just sort of depressing there, but that's not their experience of it all. So Ashley, what I would love to know, since you're here with me, and we'll see if anybody else hops on, but I'd love to know, what is your biggest challenge during the holidays? So we were talking about this idea that we can get hijacked during the holidays, and that's not the only time we get hijacked. So what do I mean by hijacked? Well, many of us who are in this group, I don't think there's anybody in this group that doesn't have a certain like backpack of tools, right? To stay conscious, to stay high vibe. Ashley, I know that you in your business probably work a lot on mindset and being able to stay in possibility rather than in limitations. It's super important for being able to do the work that we do to, put people in the homes of their dreams, to walk them through what they really want to accomplish, to help them do that, even for our own selves. It's essential that we operate at a higher vibration than maybe what we grew up with or what we were conditioned with. And so what I mean by getting hijacked is, despite all of the tools that we have in our magic backpack for staying present, for staying high vibration, for staying in a positive mindset, we sometimes come across a trigger, right? So someone gets mad at us, or someone says something that we take really personally, or shame comes up. That, for me, shame is my thing. That's the thing that will hijack me the quickest. And we come offline. We come out of our conscious mind and we go straight into fight, flight, or freeze. And I call it flooding too, because that's what it can really feel like, right? When all of that emotion and that sensation in the body just sort of washes over you, and it's almost like you're drowning in it. You know what I mean? Have you ever felt that way? So it's taking all of the tools that you've cultivated and kind of hijacking them and bringing them offline. Meeting everyone's expectations, or your perceived expectations. Yeah, for the holidays, that's a big one. And so there's a lot of different things that can come up for us during the holidays. We're talking specifically about grief today. And so, Ashley, when you think about that challenge, meeting everyone's expectations or your perceived expectations, are you aware of some of the emotions that come up for you? I'm sure stress does. You know, stress for me, and Carla McLaren, who wrote The Language of Emotions, she's really good at sort of like identifying certain emotions, and she calls stress a weasel word because it doesn't really mean anything, or I guess a more accurate way of saying it is it means different things to different people. And so I like to get underneath stress. So we might on the surface be like, you know, meeting everyone's expectations around the holidays is stressful. But I'm going to invite you to go underneath that stress and see what other emotions might be there for you. Is it grief? Is it anger? Is it resentment? Is it disappointment? You know, what else is there for you? And going even further, even deeper into that, I'm going to ask you to locate it in your body, because that's an important thing to start noticing is where do these emotions start to show up in your body? So I was saying before that shame is the thing that can hijack me in an instant. And I feel shame in the back of my neck, and it feels a little bit like hot wires back there, like on fire. It's extremely tense, but there's also a heat back there that is, it's actually quite painful. It's not only uncomfortable, it's actually quite painful. So that's what happens for me. And if you're watching the replay, I would love to know what comes up for you, what emotions come up for you during the holidays with your challenges. Once you identify what your biggest challenges are, what are the emotions, and then where are those located in your body? So again, holidays are this time of year where your chance of getting hijacked is heightened. Another way to say that is your chance of coming out of your conscious mind, out of all of the tools that you have and all the work that you've done, the chances get high of us kind of just not having access to that at all. Going back into that small self, you know, that little girl self, or feeling like, you know, that like this weight just sort of descends upon you and you just sort of can't get out from under it, and it feels like you're kind of slogging along. Some other sensations might be like a lot of we're talking about grief today, and so grief does tend to show up like paralysis and heaviness, but sometimes some anger can show up. And oh, I forgot to scroll. Anxiety and anger in a tight ball, mostly in your hands, like you get shaky. Okay, that's great awareness, and keep that awareness, Ashley, because we're gonna come back to it in a little bit, and I'm gonna give you a tool for that. So there's lots of different ways, right, that we get hijacked, and it shows up in our body. For Ashley, it shows up like energy, like tight energy in her hands, and it's sort of shaky. And I'm guessing it doesn't feel all that wonderful, right? It feels maybe like you're out of control, like you're not able to control what's going on, and everything's just sort of like happening in front of you. And you kind of, I sometimes feel like I'm sort of like chasing that ball that dropped, you know? So those are a couple of ways that we can feel when we get out of our consciousness, when we get hijacked out of that space. And the thing is, like, sometimes we don't even know that we're hijacked. Like we're like, we're good, I'm good, you know, and we keep plugging along, and we get into that space where we're like, if I just keep focused and I just keep plugging along, like I'll put my head down and I'll get through this. And that's kind of an indication that we're hijacked as well. When we're in that space where we're like, I don't have time to feel that right now. I don't have time to deal with that right now. So I'm just going to push it away, and I'm going to push it down, and I'm going to ignore it because there's stuff to do, and I've got to go shopping. I've got to meet these clients. I've got all these things that I've got to do. And so I just don't have time to go into my feelings right now. And yeah, out of control. And like, you have to put your, yeah, that feeling, oh God, it feels so terrible, doesn't it? When you feel like the only way that I'm going to get this done is if I ignore or put things on the back burner, things that are very precious to me, things that are of high value to me. And that just, oh God, the guilt, right? The guilt that gets triggered with that of, why this is the person that I love most in the world. Why am I doing that to them? What, yeah, the guilt that surrounds that. And again, when we get taken out of our consciousness, so the consciousness, remember, is like an awareness and making conscious choices and being in a place where we are not a victim, where we know that we have choice, where we know that we're able to create. You know what I mean? Yeah. Cool. So this is landing, this is resonating. And this time of year, in addition to the anxiety, a lot of grief can come up too, because, well, there's obviously the grief that comes with loss. So if you've experienced any kind of a loss in your life of a family member or close friends, or someone that that was very precious to you, and you've lost them, the holidays can be pretty difficult. And we have such a difficult relationship with grief anyway in our culture. We don't spend a lot of time processing it. There's not a lot of compassion and empathy for people who are going through grief. Grief looks and feels different ways. So there's just not a lot of support around feeling grief. And then on top of that, for the holidays, there's a lot of grief that we can't even name sometimes. And I think sometimes when we can't name that grief, we put a different emotion on top of it because it makes sense. So, I can't tell you how many times I've just broken down crying, and the people who are trying to comfort me, I keep telling them, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying. Or I've had a client with me and they've broken down crying and they've been saying, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying. And a lot of times I think it's that unprocessed grief around all of these different things that we talked about in the 9 days together, around not nurturing ourselves and nourishing ourselves, around the wounding, around feminine energy not being valued. And because we are in feminine bodies, that means that we probably didn't feel valued. So these core wounds that sort of come up but aren't talked about, and that grief gets passed down generationally, and we're not talking about it. And so we feel this grief and we don't know why we're feeling this grief, and so then we pile stuff on top of our plate so we don't feel grief, and then it becomes anger or resentment or anxiety. So for me, this time around the holidays can bring up a lot of grief, not necessarily because I've lost anyone, although I have lost loved ones, but it is a deep grief around not being able to have the holiday that I want. It's, my mom tended toward depression, and that's how I grew up. That's what was modeled for me. And that's what I battle as well, is my tendency, if I don't use my tools and I don't stay as conscious as possible, I tend towards depression. And so for me, there's a lot of grief around not having the sort of holidays that I think that I should have had, or the holidays that I've longed to have. And that grief comes up around my parents a lot, because there is that wounding around, like, I didn't get to have the childhood that I wanted to have. So for a lot of people, this grief is sort of this unnamed loss. Like, it's not a person, right? But it's an experience that we really feel like we should have had, or we really wish that we had had. And so the grief can show up that way. So I'm just curious if this is resonating with anybody else. If some of that, because grief is so difficult to feel for some of us, we do pile on the things so that we don't go into the grief, and we tell ourselves, I don't have time to feel this way. And then we get into the anxiety, and we get into the, that stuff gets passed down in the holidays too, because we might be around family members who are going through that grief, and they put these expectations around what the holidays should look like or what they should feel like. And if they're hijacked and they're acting from their wounded space instead of from their healing space, it can feel really controlling. It can feel like there's a lot of obligation. So it's really ripe. It is so ripe. Oh, it's hitting home for you. Okay. Okay. This is a lovely unfolding, Ashley. I am so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that we can uncover this and we can talk about this, because it's, um, when I think about the things that get passed down to me, and then I think about the things that I'm willing and not willing to pass down to my own daughter. I'm getting a little choked up right now. It becomes really urgent for me to repattern this, because I don't want to pass this down to my daughter. Now, I'm not under the illusion that she will, have a life of rainbows and unicorns. I know that to grow, that we have to be in the uncomfortable parts. I just don't want to pass down any more than I have to pass down. So for me, it becomes really urgent to repattern these things so that my daughter doesn't have to be in these same spaces that I'm feeling right now. I'm just going to check my notes, because I wanted to really try to not fire hose you with information again. Yeah, so, okay, Ashley, so when you think about the grief and it's hitting home for you, let's ask that again. Where is that showing up in your body? Now, you're right now probably still online, meaning still somewhat conscious. You're able to answer these questions for me. You're able to locate these things in your body. But oftentimes when we get hijacked, when we go out of consciousness, the feeling can become so big and so overwhelming that, again, it's like we're flooded with this emotion and our system shuts down or fights back, right? So we get completely hijacked in the situation. So it's nice to have these moments where we can talk about it and we can identify it and we can locate it in the body when the volume is turned down a little bit, so that the next time a trigger comes up for you, where you're not coming into a place where you're watching a Facebook Live and we're talking about this in a really safe container and in a really loving way, but it comes at you from, nowhere, and you weren't expecting it, and you get sort of hijacked. You can recognize, oh, I feel this tight tension in my hands. That means I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. I know that grief might be underneath that. What's here for me? What's present for me? Now, we're not always able to stay conscious and to witness this. A lot of times we're not able to do this. But the more we can be in that practice of witnessing what's going on and staying as conscious as possible and working with it, the more we start to repattern our body. And when we can repattern our body, then we have different sensations, and we create different stories, and we create a different reality. Let me know if this is sounding like you, if you're resonating with this, if you're like, yes, I want this kind of a holiday where I'm not hijacked by this, and yes, this happens to me. Let's see. I just want to check my notes again. Yeah. We are moving along. Awesome. Good. I didn't want to talk forever tonight. I really just wanted to be present with you all and to talk about this thing that happens. I mean, it happens anytime, right? It's not just during the holidays. It's just that during the holidays, we've got a lot of extra stuff. We've got family, we've got expectations, we've got a lot of fantasy about what the holidays should look and feel like. We've got a lot of friction because people have different fantasies of what the holidays should look and feel like, and then they come together and they want to have their way, and there's disappointment and grief. And so it's really just ripe for lots of emotions, for lots of wounding to be expressed, lots of family dynamics to come out of the woodwork again. Yeah, who doesn't want a holiday that's hijacked? I think I'm going to use that question. Exactly, Ashley. Exactly. Yeah. All right. So today what I want to talk to you about, and actually I'm going to talk about this for the rest of the year. We're going to talk about how to stay conscious in the holidays. And for me, there are several different tools in my toolkit. One of the things that I ask people to do all the time when they first start working with me in these moments where, we want to be more conscious about the way that we're entering into a situation is I ask people, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel during your holidays? Now, when I ask that question, if you don't have access to a lot of feeling words, which many of us don't, it can be really helpful to go find, like you can Google feeling words and you can kind of look through and see what sorts of feelings resonate with you, of what kind of a holiday that you want to have. And of course, you can do this, you can ask this question anytime. It doesn't have to just be during the holidays. You could say, how do I want to feel in my business? How do I want to feel in my body? How do I want to feel with my family? Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a particular process for choosing this word in just a second, but you don't have to necessarily go through that process to ask that question. How do I want to feel, right? So that's the number one thing that I would say is figure out how you want to heal. If you want to have a holiday that's not hijacked, go into it intentionally and discover how you want to feel. And then the other trick that not a lot of people are talking about, and I really am passionate. I'm a holistic life coach, meaning I'm really passionate about working with the entirety of the human experience. So that's the masculine and feminine energy. That's the positive and negative, if you will. That's all of it. It's the light and the shadow, all of it, because it's all part of the human experience. And we liberate a lot of our energy when we work with both instead of when we're trying to fight off or ignore or push down one aspect, right? So that's what I call the polarity. And I work a lot with natural laws, you know that. And the law of polarity states that there are extremes to any type of energy. So let's put this in real words, right? So anxiety or grief is one side of the polarity, right? And then what would the other side of that polarity be? For you, Ashley, do you know what the other side of anxiety is for you? What's the extreme? We would call it the opposite. I'll say that word, although I don't want to set them up as enemies. But what's the opposite of anxiety? So the opposite of grief for a lot of people is joy, right? Joy, love, happiness, those sorts of things. Martin Prechtel has a book called On Grief and Praise. And for him, he talks about the dynamic between grief and praise, grief and preciousness. That's the polarity that he works with. And it's really beautiful the way that he works with that polarity, right? Because grief really is a praise of what we love. There is a preciousness about grief, right? And so being able to work with our polarities, not only our word, how we want to feel, but being able to work with our polarity words, that is where the key to staying out, well, not to staying out of hijack, but to working with what happens when the hijack happens. So for instance, when you start to go offline, you'll start to notice that your polarity is happening. So if you, for instance, want to feel joy during the holidays, but you notice that you're feeling grief, or you want to feel light and grounded in your body, but what you're feeling instead is very heavy and very and paralyzed, you know that you're in your polarity. And so rather than being in that polarity and being like scratching your way to try to get out of that, to get back to your word, doing anything and everything and like sort of, frantically trying to figure out what's wrong with me, how do I fix this? Your energy goes toward that polarity, and that's how it shifts much, much easier. So first of all, figure out how you want to feel during the holidays. Secondly, learn what the polarity is, learn how to turn toward that polarity. And by the way, it really helps to have some support when you're in your polarity. So a guide, a mentor, a coach, a therapist, a really aware friend that has a lot of tools that can help you, a spouse that is supportive, that can help you, because it is almost impossible to get out of it on our own because we're hijacked, we're offline, we don't have access to our tools, right? So we need a friend there to tell us, number one, you're okay, you're loved, and it's okay to give deep approval to whatever's going on right now. And then number two, here are all of your tools that I know that you know how to use, and I'll be here and hold space for you while you go through this. That's so important to be able to do. Not sure how to reach joy without the hanging feeling of selfishness to get there. That's interesting. You're not the only person that I've heard that from, Ashley. And what's super interesting to me is I'm wondering if joy and selfishness are polarities for you. So that's interesting. That would be worth diving into and figuring that out. Because what if you could work with, well, you can work with the selfishness, of course, with that feeling. And I'm hearing guilt. Is that also what I'm hearing? That, and maybe some shame also that goes with that idea of being selfish. And so what if you could work with that rather than seeing those two as opposites, as conflicting, as diametrically opposed to each other, right? All right, so figure out how you want to feel, know the polarity, get support, and then the other tool for me, well, you know this for life, but especially during the holidays, I really start to pay attention to my dreams. Jeremy Taylor, who is one of the dream workers I love to work with, or did love to work with, he's since deceased, but he says, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the exact quote, but he says that dreams come to us to point out where the path, and he says to the transcendent, but I'm going to insert my words here, the path to divine love, the path to our highest self, where that path might be broken. So what that means is our dreams are coming to tell us where our polarity is showing up. Our dreams are coming to tell us where our path to joy is broken. Our dreams are coming to tell us where grief might be hanging out and lurking that we're not even aware of. That's the thing, is that the dreams are coming to tell us things that we don't already know. And that's one of the most beautiful things about working with dreams, is that we have access to information that we would not otherwise have access to. I know our thinking mind likes to believe that we can figure everything out, but there's a whole, when you think about an image of your conscious mind and your subconscious mind and the relationship between them, the conscious mind is the top of the iceberg. It's the top of the iceberg that we can see out of the water. And the subconscious mind, if you've ever seen an iceberg, of course, or pictures of icebergs, you know that the iceberg goes down like, probably 5 times as big as what's above the water. So above the water is your conscious mind, below the water is your subconscious mind. And we don't see that. So there's an exponential amount of information within our subconscious that we have no access to unless we're actively working with it. And one of the best ways I know to do that is through dream work. Okay, so here's what we did, right? We said, how do I want to feel during the holiday? How does that show up in my body? Can I figure out how that feels in my body? What's the polarity of that? How does that show up in my body? And then get support for being able to work with that, work with your dreams to start to undo those patterns in the first place. Because a trigger and getting hijacked, that is not going to happen if that pattern's not activated in your body. If that pattern's not active in your body, a trigger won't happen. So let me give you an example. For a long time, I was really triggered when someone would question my things that I would say, my knowledge, right? I really had a trigger around seeming intelligent or seeming smart, or like I knew what I was talking about. And so when people would question me, because I had a pattern still running, that I'm a fraud, I don't know what I'm doing, I shouldn't be doing this, all of those things, when someone would question me, I would get hijacked. It would trigger me. I've worked through that pattern. I've undone the pattern. I've reprogrammed the pattern. I've cleared it out of my system, not just my mind, but out of my body, so that when someone questions me now, I don't feel it. It doesn't hijack me. I get to stay curious. I get to stay with them in that curiosity. I don't feel like I have to defend myself. So that's what I mean by, being able to go into your dreams and figure out where that path to joy is maybe broken. That path to to preciousness, that path to whatever word it is that you want, magic, whatever it is that you want to feel. Where's that path broken? And then you can go in and you can repattern the sensations in your body. So emotions show up as sensations, feelings in your body, and they're the things that actually have us create meaning, right? So you feel that tightness in your fist, and for you, actually, somewhere along the line, you programmed this tightness in your fist to be anxiety. This means that I feel anxious. This means that the world is spinning out of control and I've got to hold on for dear life, right? So that's the pattern in your body, and being able to notice that, notice how that shows up in your dreams, helps to undo that pattern so that the things that would normally send you into that pattern don't affect you. It's like creating a little bubble where things just bounce off of you. Somebody else is joining us. If you'll tell me that you're here, I would love to know that you're here so I can say hi to you. It's Chandra. Hello, hello. All right. So that is, and we're gonna dig into this because there's so many layers. There's so much to talk about. Chandra, I'm wondering, do you have any challenges around the holiday? Do you find the holidays challenging in any way? And if so, what comes up for you? What's there for you? There's a poll in the group, by the way. If you have not taken the poll yet, that would be really, yeah. And isn't it interesting? And dreams do this too, Ashley. Isn't it interesting how when you go into that feeling, like I didn't get that holding on thing until I put that sensation, or I activated that in my body based on what you said. And that's when it came to me like, oh, it feels like you're holding on. So it's so cool. Dreams do this too, but it's so cool how these things show up in our body, show up in our dreams in symbol, as a way for us to sort of understand what the pattern is. And honestly, look, at the end of the day, we're not going to do this with our conscious mind. We're not going to be able to think our way out of this. We got to feel our way out. We're not going to do it with our intellect. And I know our intellect likes to tell us that we can do it and that we will do it. We got to feel our way out of it, through it. We got to feel our way through it. Yeah. Okay. So, we're going to dig into this. There's a poll in the group. I'd love for you to take the poll in the group. What is most challenging for you during the holidays? We're really going to dig into it. Today we're talking about grief. And, spoiler alert, it's sort of the same for all of these things that we're dealing with. We'll just sort of talk about it in different ways and show up and share with each other and stay in consciousness and awareness and ask these questions, which is another way. It's that connection, right? That safe space connection with other people, another way that we can start to reprogram this. So I told you earlier that I was going to talk to you about a particular method that I use to come up with that one word of how I want to feel. And this is sort of your guiding word, your compass, if you will. And I've gone through the process, and I am a facilitator of the process. This was one of my bonuses that I offered for the Visionary Dream Magic, and it's called Finding Your Soul's Agenda. So what I've done, based on some of the feedback that I got from different people, based on some of the conversations that I've been having with what's present and what's present for the holidays, is I've actually put a package together that I'm super excited about, and it is, I'm calling it my Dream Weaving Package. And honestly, like this, putting these two tools together and offering it to you during the holidays was an inspiration that came from my intuition, and I followed it. So yeah, I'm guessing, Chandra, that you've had a lot of experience creating the holidays that you want. Yeah. Awesome. All about connection for you. Wonderful. So Chandra, if holidays aren't particularly triggering for you, I know you just bought a house. And so those types of situations that are sort of stressful like that, I guess I'm just curious, like, what tends to hijack you? What tends to get you out of your conscious mind, out of the place where you're showing up as the person that you want to be? Is it those situations where, like, numbers are involved and contracts are involved, and is this going to work out? Is this not going to work out? Like, what are those types of situations that tend to hijack you? And, maybe you don't go completely offline, but definitely the sensations get activated in the body. Just curious. All right, so this package, I'm calling it the Dream Weaving Package, and that's because we weave in the Soul Agenda work with the dream work. So it is a Find Your Soul's Agenda intensive session with me, where we can unlock the one word for you that is actually part of your soul's programming. So it's not just staring at anymore. It's not just staring at a list of words and saying to yourself, oh, I want to feel joy. But we're really going through a specific exercise to figure out what it is that your soul is trying to express. Your soul, it has chosen to come here to express. So we find that one word, and that is, and we also talk about the polarities, and we really dive in and dig into those words. We find it in the body. It's a really amazing process. And so not only can you use it, obviously, for the holidays, and definitely we'll talk about how you can do that, but this ends up being a guiding word that you can use in your business, you can use in your health, you can use when you want to decide what to eat for breakfast, you can use when you want to decide what to wear. I mean, in any instance, when you're in relationship with someone, a sale that you want to close, or any time, you can constantly use this as a guide for how to express your soul's purpose out in the world. So that's one part of it. It's the 3-hour intensive. There's a follow-up call that happens in January where we talk about the experience of using the Soul Agenda word. And then the other part of the package is the dream work with me. So this is a shared dream document where you write down we do one dream a week. I give you some parameters to work with the dreams, and then I go in and I comment and I guide and I ask questions, and I may give you follow-up exercises to be able to work with the things that are showing up. And we're specifically looking within this particular package, we're specifically looking for how your soul's agenda word shows up and for how your polarity shows up. So I'm really excited about this package. I'm really excited about the potential for giving you the tools to be able to stay present, giving you the tools to be able to stay in control of your world, of not having to hold on for dear life, disintegrity, lack of fairness, bullying. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that bullying thing, right? That feeling. Oh, it's showing up in my body. That feeling of almost like being condescended to, or people trying to make something happen that's not in the highest good for everybody, right? Oh, I know exactly what you mean. And so wouldn't it be lovely in those moments where you feel like you're holding on, or you feel like you're being bullied, if you had a tool to sort of not only navigate your own energy in it, but as we know, of course, as our energy shifts and changes, we have an impact on what's going to happen externally. So to move out of that space of, I wish all these people would behave, and just sort of like emanating this energy transformation that happens, right? And we'll talk more about it, because it's so interesting the way energy shows up, even when words are not spoken, right? Bullying totally is the worst. So so if this interests you, if you're really interested in the tools to be able to stay present, to stay in control, to stay in your sovereignty, to stay in your authenticity, to stay in your personal authority, your groundedness, your center, stay in your role as a co-creator, stay in curiosity throughout the holidays and beyond, then please reach out to me. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about if this is a good fit for you. So you can always private message me. You can send me an email. Some of you have my number. You can text me. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Thank you for coming on live. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Chandra, for coming on live. Thank you, everybody who is watching the replay. Again, let me know that you're watching the replay so I can check in with you and see how this lands. Like I said, we're going to keep talking about this. So take the poll in the group so you can direct the conversation that way. Make comments, of course, and you can direct the conversation that way. Next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about this again on Facebook Live. We're going to be talking specifically about mother relationships and how those play out during the holidays. We're going to be digging into the mother wound a little bit, a lot of it. You're welcome, Ashley. You are so welcome. Thank you for showing up. And then we're also going to have some dream labs. So if you did not get to come to the dream lab during the 9-day workshop, we're going to have a couple of more dream labs between now and the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled for those. And if you've not done a dream lab with me, they are, I know a lot of us think that, you know, it's just our dreams. There's, you know, what more could I get out of it? I've worked with my dreams before, and it didn't really tell me anything that I didn't know. And if we go with with what Jeremy Taylor says, that our dreams never come to tell us what we already know, and we dig in a little bit more, I've never had anybody leave a session without some kind of an aha, without something they didn't, something that they didn't already know, some kind of an aha. Yes, mommy stuff. I got some stuff with the mommy stuff. I'm guessing a lot of people in here too. And listen, you know, I'm not in a place where I want to blame or shame anybody's mom, or my mom, or me as a mom. But the fact of the matter is that because of the wounding around the feminine energy and the way that we don't value feminine energy, there is a lot of mother stuff, like archetypal mother stuff out there, that we all have to wade through, that our mothers had to wade through, that our grandmothers had to wade through, you know, back and back and back and back. Being powerless, being bullied, feeling like they're not in control, feeling like they're out of their sovereignty, feeling like they have no choice. So all of that stuff gets passed down. Generation that gets to, if we want to, start to untangle that, start to heal that, start to express a healthy feminine. So we're going to get into the mother wound next week. And then the week after that is we're going to do a dream lab. And then we have another dream lab in December. And we're going to keep talking about getting hijacked during the holidays. So be a part of the conversation. Go comment, private message me, whatever you want to do to drive the conversation, and we'll go there. All right, loves, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the group. Sweet dreams, everybody. Bye-bye.